Hello, I am Anawiltos, and today I am here to give you a little bit of a beginner's guide or tutorial to how to play Freeciv, available at play.freeciv.org. So, what is Freeciv? First of all, Freeciv is a strategy game, a turn-based strategy game where you take a turn and then other players or artificial intelligences, depending on what you're playing exactly, will then take their turns and then it comes back to your turn. So it is based on the popular series of games created by Sid Meier's and Firaxis, etc., known as Civilization. And in this game, essentially, you become the leader of a civilization that you lead throughout history in its technological development and in its expansion. And eventually, your goal is to win the game. And in Free Civ, this is possible through three different ways. You can either conquer your opponents, you can create a spaceship to go to another planet, or you can wait till the turns are up. And by that I mean there is a limited number of turns, but once you reach that limit, the person with the highest score wins. And the score is determined by a number of different things that I'm not actually familiar with the actual algorithm that determines a score exactly, but generally, being a bigger empire, being more technologically developed, and having a good military and some good infrastructure and good population and a good economy are probably going to get you a good score. So anyway, let's take a look here. This is the main screen that you get once you decide to start playing the game, and I am logged in. I've got an account in this game, and we've got four buttons at the top here. Start a game, which would start you right into a game based on the game options that are put in the game settings and also in the nation that you've picked. And if you haven't picked one, I presume that it, of course, is going to go randomly. And you can load a game in case you have saved a game in the past. And as you can see, I have quite a few of these because I'm running a long running series on this game that you can watch on my YouTube channel. Anyway, I am now going to do a few things here. So let's take a look at the game settings. We've got the rule set and classic, Civ 2, Civ 3, or web experimental. Now, I personally am not 100% familiar with all the differences between these three different versions, but there are some notable differences. For example, some technologies and some units that are available for recruitment in the game may not be present in Classic as they are in the Civ 2, Civ 3. So I'm going to stay with Classic, and I'm not going to put a title on it since I'm not planning to make this a multi-part series, really. And numbers of players, we'll just leave everything here. Timeout. We're not going to have a turn timer because, of course, that's going to pressure me a lot. And I want to be able to look over things and explain things. So I'm not really going to put that on. Don't need a password since I'm going single player, and map size isn't going to be that relevant here. AI skill level, we're not going to mess with any of this really. So let's just talk about a few things here. The initial text per player is 0. The land mass, percentage of map that is made of land. And it's nice that there's a tooltip here that tells us all these different things. So you can go through all these different options and look at the tooltips. So I'm going to leave everything at default rules. And I'm not going to enable text-to-speech because that is a fun thing to do, but for the purpose of this video, it may just be distracting. So here it is. we can have a number of different nations. There's a search function here. And over here, there's also a number of different styles that you can use for your cities. So let me think, what do I really want here? Now, in this game, it doesn't actually make that much a difference which nation you are. It really is more for aesthetic RP purposes rather than any actual differences inside of a game. But I still like to deliberate a bit to think about, well, what do I feel like today? What is my country going to be today? Let's go a bit off the beaten path, a bit meme heavy. Let's go East Germany. There you go. We're going to go a little bit socialistic here, and we're going to go with a European city style. And there we go. Look at that. Look at that grain. We're going to make ourselves the prettiest little communist country. So anyway, let's start up, and here we are. We've started up the game. All the rules are in default, playing as East Germany, and look at that. We have found ourselves in some land, and right-clicking anywhere on the map allows you to sort of shift to that location and center your screen on that location. Just an important thing to note. And these buttons here will tell your people what to do. So the first thing you're going to want to do in every game of Free Civ, or even Civilization in general, something that's very important is to build your cities as soon as possible. Now, in some scenarios, moving around may be something that someone might consider doing, but in this scenario, I think we're fine here. I think we'll have plenty of opportunities to get food, and it just looks like a great place to build a city. And look at that. We can call our city Berlin, which just so happens to be the capital of East Germany. So you know what? We're going to leave it that way. And look at that. Look at those borders. Wonderful borders here. Expanding. So this dotted line delineates the border of our great nation. And I could move my other settler to another location. And you know what? I'm probably going to do that. But first, I'm going to pick this unit. What is this unit? This unit is an explorer. What does an explorer do? Well, the function of an explorer is to explore. So I could take the unit and move him to a specific place, but if I press this button right here, he is going to just go wherever he wants to go. And look at that. He went over this goody hut, as some like to call them. And according to the chat log here, the message log, which by the way is very important, always leave this open, always make sure that you take a good look at what's in here, because otherwise you may miss some important information. I have found 50 gold there. So at the bottom of the screen, we can see who we are, our population, where in history we are, how much money we've got, and of course the tax rate, which is a bit more an advanced feature, but we're going to leave it at that. Luxury rate and the science rate, how much money we're pumping into scientific research. But we're really not going to do anything with that quite yet. But the first thing that I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this settler here, and I'm going to press this button, or actually I'm going to press a hotkey, which is G, as the tooltip says. So I'm going to press G, and look at that. We can move over here. Now, we aren't going to get there as fast as our explorer, because this unit isn't meant to travel long distances fast. They're traveling in a wagon, and let's be honest, a wagon isn't going to fit through all the same spaces that a man and his horse can. So it's going to take some time to get there. But when I get there, I'm going to found a city, and hopefully that is going to be very useful. But on the way, I might as well do something else as well. I'm going to send this unit here. This unit is a worker. What can a worker do, you may ask? Well, I'm going to send this worker here. I'm also going to send this worker over here, and we'll be able to take a look at that next turn. But anyway, before I end the turn, as I can do by pressing this button or by using the hotkey as the tooltip is currently showing, I'm going to take a look at some of these tabs at the top. So right now we are looking at the map, which is probably what you're going to spend the most time in the game looking at, because it is from here that you move all your units, that you found your cities, and that you wage war. But what else can we look at? We can look at the government. What does this do? Well, this tells us the form of government we have. And different forms of government can give you certain benefits and detriments, and these can be researched in the manual, which is over here, which tells you most of what you need to know about the game. However, there are other resources that can be reached as well. But if you're seeing something in the game and you don't really know what it is, it's always good to take a look in the manual just to be sure. So anyway, back toward the government tab, we can cause a revolution, which would change our government to another type, and I currently don't really have any intention to do that. We can take a look at our tax rates. So let's take a look. This determines where we're spending our money, and I could move this down and get some more luxury in, or I could keep that there, or I could say, you know what, we're not going to do any research, we're just going in for straight luxury. No, we're not doing that. And so what this essentially does is it shows your country's budget. The tax is the amount of money that you're putting in your country's treasury to spend on various things. The luxury is how many benefits you're giving your citizens, which generally increases the happiness in towns, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit. And the science is all about the research, which is something that is also very important to look at. In fact, we're going to be looking at that once we're done at looking at this. Wonders of the World shows you which special buildings have been built. Wonders. Buildings like the Colosseum, or the workshop of Leonardo da Vinci, or the Eiffel Tower are special buildings that in this game give special bonuses to the civilization that builds them. Now, it is important to note that these, of course, are unique world wonders, which means if you didn't build it first, you don't get to build it. So in a multiplayer game, that can oftentimes be an important part of playing the game, is seeing which wonders you should go for and balancing that against building, let's say, other city improvements, in buildings that improve how your city works, in addition to military units and such things. So anyway, we've got the top 5 cities, which isn't going to give us that much information right now because we're not really into that seriously yet. The demographics, which show us where we're ranked in the world compared to other powers. And unfortunately, since it's turn 1, we're not getting much information there. And the spaceship. That is to say, how far are we in the space race? How far are we, how close are we to winning the game with the science victory? And speaking of science, we've got research. And research allows us to do a number of different things. It allows us to build new buildings in our cities. It allows us to build new units to work the land and to fight our enemies with. It also allows us to build great wonders and to sometimes look at new forms of government. So right now we are on the course of going for pottery, and I think that is something that is very fair to go to. I don't see a reason to switch from that. But in the future, we may have a different goal. We may be looking for something else to do. So, for example, we have the ability to go for the wheel. So I'm going to right click the wheel here. Actually, I'm going to left click it. And look at that. We are still working on pottery. And however, now we have set the wheel as our research goal. So once we're done looking at pottery, we're going to go for horseback riding, and then we're going to research the wheel, which is going to allow us to produce chariots. And why would I be doing this? Well, it's because of my personal playstyle in which I like to get strong military units to lord over my weaker opponents. But that is something to perhaps discuss at another time. For now, we're done with the research screen, and of course, just as a look ahead at some Endgame Technology here. There it is. Look at that. We can look at the nations. And these are the nations that are in our game. So we've got East Germany, nice color, with me here. I am the only human player, as all of these are AIs, and if they weren't AIs, they would probably begin to be a little bit annoyed at me currently for taking so long on my turn. We've got France. Now, of course, again, it doesn't really make a difference which ones they are, but eventually it is good to know so that you can recognize them. We've got Kanem Bornu. Wow, that's something very interesting. The Zapotecs. The Austrians. Very nice. Abyssinia. The Western Romans. And the Vandals. Very interesting. So, other than that, we can also go to the Cities tab, which shows us all our cities and is also a convenient place to go directly to our cities. So what does this show us about our cities? It shows us the name, the population, the size of a city, which is related to the population, the state of the city, because sometimes cities can go into rebellion, how much food is stockpiled in the city, how long it will be until we will reach a greater population size, what the city is currently working on producing, and the surplus in the city, etc. Now, if I click on the city, here we are. This opens up a new screen that you can move around if you really want to. And this screen shows us the city, the surrounding tiles of the city, and up here, this is very important, it shows us the citizens. Now, we currently only have one, and the city is always used for resources, but each citizen can go outside of the city to work on something else. So this citizen has chosen to work on gathering fish, as opposed to if I were to click there, it would free up the citizen, and I could click here, and as you're seeing, it isn't a more profitable venue to do that. Or I could go here, and that would produce warriors in 2 turns as opposed to 10 turns here. So I could do one of 2 things. I could focus on getting my citizens to work in this forest here, therefore gaining quite a bit of production and still getting food, but growing my town in 20 turns, or I could be going for food, which isn't going to be increasing my production, but my town will grow twice as fast, which overall is probably going to allow me to build more things faster, because then I can get the second person to work on a forest and still have the ability to work on food, and then I'll get a third person faster, and I'll snowball from there. So for now, early on in the game, I think it's good to focus on getting quite a bit of food. Just some important information there. So anyway, in this town, we have 4 different tabs that we can look at. You can also look at different cities, but here's the production tab, which is very important. And we can produce some troops, which I think is important. It's important to have at least 1 soldier. So I am going to stay on this path, but what do we have here? Here we have what we could potentially produce in this town, and I'm going to mouse over them. Settlers are the unit that can build cities. We've got warriors, who are the most basic military unit that are relevant, but I'd rather have anything else, since every other unit is more advanced than a warrior. Then you've got barracks and coinage. In fact, now that I think about barracks increase the quality of your warriors, and coinage just sets the city to convert its production into money. But actually, now that I'm looking at this, I think that it might be a good idea to change production to a settler. Well, no, actually, it's not a good idea now that I look at it, because it would take quite a long time. So I think it's important to get the warrior through, and once that's done, we'll have a second individual working on a forest, and that will allow us to get a settler quite fast. And then we'll expand rapidly, because in this game it's important to expand quite rapidly so that you can win the game. Because if you've expanded rapidly, it means you've got a lot of land, and you can work all that land, and no one else can work the land, and it just overall gives you quite a bit of ability to win. So anyway, no trade routes are open here, but we can take a look at the settings here, and I'm not going to do any of that. So I'm going to close this window. And then there's the options window, from which you can save the game, you can go to full screen, you can change the graphics, you can play the music, you can surrender or end the game, or give the game a different title, and of course the manual, which we talked about earlier. But right now we're looking at the map, and since we've got everything set up, we have chosen where to move our units, we have chosen what to produce in our town, and we have chosen the research to go for. I think it's about time that I end turn. There you go. That's turn 1. And what am I going to do with this worker? Now, there's a few different things that I could do. I could tell the worker to go around building whatever he wants. But right now, that isn't in my priorities. In fact, I should probably choose to send this guy up here. That looks like a great place for a city. It's close to some fish. It's close to some wine. Or perhaps even here would be better, because that's close to a shield, which is going to be very relevant. But nevertheless, I am going to tell this worker here to build a road. And what am I going to tell this worker? I'm going to tell this worker to just build whatever he wants, and he'll do that. And that's great. And here we see what Berlin is doing. Berlin is currently building warriors. So let's end the turn again, since nothing eventful is happening. And we are seeing that this coast is looking quite good. We're seeing quite a bit of fish, quite a bit of whales. And again, I changed my mind. I want to go here because I'm going to build a city over here. That's my plan. I don't want them to be too close, but being close is still good. And there we go. Next turn. And look at that. They both decided to build roads. Well, I told one of them to build a road. So now I'm going to send this one up north to build another road up here. and I'm going to connect my cities. And you might be wondering, what do roads do? Well, roads allow your units to travel faster, which is always very important. And here we see an area called a scorched spot, a nice landmark. Oh, look at that. We have encountered the country of Abyssinia, also known as Ethiopia. And look at that. They have offered us a ceasefire because we start the game on a sort of state of war. So it's always good to make a bit of peaceful relations. So you know what? I accept that. I think it's good to be peaceful with my neighbors, live peaceably with one another, as some might say. Anyway, we are getting close to accomplishing a few things here. And what specifically? Well, what else but building a new city? So, unfortunately, this unit has moved this turn, so we're not going to be building a city right now. But I am going to finish my turn, and now I can build a city. And we'll build a city, Leipzig. Okay. And there we have it, our second city. And what's important to do when you go to a new city is to decide what to produce in it. And let's take a look at what we've got here. So I could be going for some production here. Actually, that one's a better tile. I'm not quite close enough to the fish. Maybe I should have started here. But you know what? This place is a good as place as any because it gives me some production, some food, so it's pretty good. We're going to grow in 10 turns just like in the other town, so it's not actually that bad. In the meantime, we could get some warriors, and in fact, the warriors here would advance a lot faster. Would be produced a lot faster than in the main town because we are working a tile that has the ability to produce. So let's take a look. Where is our explorer going? Look at that. We've found a few locations. Anyway, let's finish the turn. And nothing eventful happened. And here it is. What is this? This is another country's individual. Look at that. That is a unit sent by Abyssinia. And we are at peace with them. Or to be more exact, we have a ceasefire with them. So we see no reason to attack them. So we're just going to let them pass. And my worker here is done. So I'm going to send him north. And it seems like my explorer has found more money and the borders of another country. And some colder lands as well. And the world is starting to take shape. I can begin to see where I am in the world. Berlin may soon grow to size 2. Okay, so I'm going to build a road here. And after that road is finished, our two towns will be connected. And let me take a look at the city. Leipzig has finished building a warrior and is going to be building another warrior in 5 turns. So you know what? I'm actually going to do that because I can send the first warrior out to explore a bit. Let's take a bit of exploration. And I'm going to make sure that my towns are protected in case of attack. That is why I fortified this unit, so it will stay in this town and will receive a defensive bonus for being fortified if it becomes under attack from another unit. Anyway, we have finished the road, so I think it is a good time to just tell this worker to do whatever he feels needs to be done. Anyway, it seems like Berlin has now finished building some warriors. So let's take a look at Berlin. We are taking an overview and we are focusing a bit on production. So let's see. But we could actually be focusing on food. However, the margin needed to get to the next level is going to take a bit more time. So I think it's actually a good idea at the current time to perhaps switch over to some settlers so that I can begin expanding further on. Meanwhile, I am going to send this unit to up here because I can, and then I'm going to send it to explore as well. Just to have a few units exploring. And look at that, we are discovering new lands at an alarming rate. And we have now built a new warrior. And let's take a look at the town. We can actually work this tile. So we are going to advance in 15 turns, but I'm going to take a look. How long would settlers take? Quite a bit of time to produce. So I'm actually going to switch this town over to building some barracks so that if I choose to produce more soldiers here in the future, they will come out with a stronger training. And now let us finish the turn again. And here it is, a new ceasefire with the Vandals. You know what? I think that is entirely acceptable to me. And Ladibela has decided for an official peace. And you know what? I think that's good as well. And it looks like we have discovered pottery. Our technology has indeed advanced. So we can take a look here and look at that. It is now discovered. And we are now working on horseback riding so that we can get some stronger military units. Meanwhile, our explorer has gone quite the distance in moving toward the Vandal territory. Let's pull back home here. And look at that. The most advanced civilizations in the world is East Germany, surprisingly. But you still haven't seen a banana in quite a long time. Now, it is important to note that when you produce a settler, you do lose your population. So instead of producing another settler, I'm actually going to switch to producing a granary, which is going to take just as long. But the granary, what does the granary do? It stores food to help a city grow faster and to more easily withstand famine. So that is going to be very important to me. Anyway, I am now going to move. Where would be a good place for a city? Well, I don't want any enemies setting up anything close to my capital. So I'm going to move in this direction, and we'll see where that leads us. And look at that, we're meeting people left and right, making friends. And hopefully friends for life. Let's move over. There we go. Oh, a nice river. You know what? I think it'd be nice to build close to a river. And I think this is a perfect place for a city. It's not too far from my previous cities. It has a potentially very good source of food. So I think we're probably going to set ourselves up there. And I think it's funny that the town would be called two different names, but unfortunately, I am not going to be doing that. So let's take a look at the city. we do have within range quite a good source of both food and production. So you know what? We could actually springboard. Well, no, we can't, because our population is going to change in 20 turns. So we can't actually springboard off of this. But we should probably do this. Look at that. See that? I can manipulate the list. So that's going to be done in 4 turns, and in another few turns something else is going to be done. And you know what? We'll go like this. We'll take the lower cost, then the middle cost, then the higher cost unit, and we'll just build up like that. And we'll use the worker to link back and to also help improve the rest of the lands. And hopefully that will be very useful. And look at that. Leipzig has finished building some barracks. So now is building a granary. And what is the population of Leipzig? It is 2. Now, I could be going here, but what if I went here? No, I can't actually. That's out of range. So I'm going to be going here, and you know what? Maybe a granary, and how about we follow that up with another settler, because it is important to expand early in the game, as I said earlier, so that you can reach quite a large area geographically in a relatively short amount of time. So let us finish. And funnily enough, since our nation's color is actually the same color as the unexplored areas on a map, it sort of blends in, which is slightly problematic, but I don't mind. And we have discovered horseback riding, so now we are just one step closer to getting the wheel. So let us finish our turn here, and look at that. We have a new unit that we're promptly going to set into the town to protect it. And a ceasefire with Austria, you know what? That's fine with me. And the peace with the Vandals, it's good, man. Feels good, man. It's important not to get aggressive too early, so that you don't end up having big problems with other countries attacking you. And is that a Frenchman? Well, let's take a look. How are we dealing with France? We have had no contact with France. We have no ceasefire, no armistice. You know what that means? Going to get a bit cheeky here. I'm going to take my unit that is in the town. I'm going to send him. Oh, those cheeky French. They decided that as soon as they saw the steps I was taking, oh boy, that could have been, oh, that I didn't want to do that. But I did get another tile explored from doing that, so I guess it's okay. De Gaulle, you've got the Gaulle. You do. Let's make sure I pick my unit and I fortify. I don't want him to explore all over the world and leave the capital undefended, which certainly is not something that I would want to occur. And the Zapotecs want peace as well. Look at that. We're making friends left and right. And this is generally how the games go, at least on this difficulty. And Berlin has decided to go for some coinage, when in fact, let's take a look. We're going to change population size 23 turns. Our production, let's actually see. What could we switch to? Change production here. 40 turns for Hanging Garden. But what does the Hanging Garden do? Which is one of the great wonders that we can build. It makes one content citizen happy in every city. And it makes 2 extra content citizens happy in a city containing the Hanging Gardens. It is in the unlikely event where there are no content citizens to get the effect of Hanging Gardens, the wonder applies to unhappy citizens, making each content then happy. So we could build this, but it is going to take quite a long time, and we currently don't actually have any problems with our citizens being excessively unhappy. So I'm actually thinking of doing something different. And that, of course, is changing over to Barracks and then getting another settler. That's right. We're going to expand fast here. Oh, look. We have a deficit in our budget, a budget deficit, which is a bit unfortunate, but we have a big treasury, so you know what? It's fine with me. Just pretend it isn't there. And look at that, turn after turn, we're encountering people, we're making friends. So anyway, I think that has been enough for now. And I tried to demonstrate combat a little bit, but generally what would have happened is I would have attacked the French unit here, and upon hitting the French unit with my unit, there would have been a pop-up displaying my chance of victory as being between two percentages, and I would then have the opportunity to choose whether or not I would like to follow through with the attack. And my chance to win is, of course, based on those percentages. Now, when attacking a city, you generally don't get that as much. You don't get the percentages to show up and to aid you in this matter. So I think this is a good place to stop. I've expanded a bit. I've encountered other people. And look at that. Explorers really do love hugging those coasts, but the exploration definitely got done. I don't know if that's grammatically correct. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for watching at this point, and if you'd like more information on Freeciv, you can always play the game, look at the manual, or take a look at any of these websites. And I will be leaving a link to the game in the description, specifically this exact link right here. So anyway, I thank you all for watching, and I will be seeing you all next time on a Woltus over and